Welcome to Lawn Tips with Lou.
It's approaching mid-January, and there's a lot of things to get done as we approach the upcoming spring mowing season. Take time to sharpen the blade on your rotary mower. There are several tools you can use to sharpen the blade. I like to use a grinder, but you can also sharpen the blade using an angle grinder, or you can simply use a good file. And make sure the blade is balanced when you're done sharpening it. If the blade on your edger appears to be worn, it'd be a good idea to go ahead and put on a new blade before the spring. I bought this device for removing the blade on my lawnmower, but it's also good for holding the blade in place on the edger to remove the blade.
When putting the new edger blade on, the blade lock device allows you to firmly tighten the nut that holds the blade in place.
To sharpen my reel mower, I've removed the protective cover from the side and the drive chain so that I have access here to this sprocket so that I can put my drill on that to turn the blade backwards. Now the process I go through is I take a toothbrush, an old toothbrush with grinding compound, and then I just put it along the edge of each of the blades, and I've completed that process already. And what you'll notice is when I turn the blade backwards, you'll hear the grinding sound from the grinding compound. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the electric drill on the sprocket over here and turn the blade backwards so that it grinds and sharpens the blade through the backlapping process. The backlap process means spinning the wheel backwards. You don't want to spin the wheel or the blade in a forward motion when you do this. You want to do it in reverse so that it doesn't dull the blade with the grit hitting the front edge of the blade. You spin it backwards, and that way it puts a nice honed edge to the front of the blade. Now what I want to do is clean the grit off of each of the blades so that it's good and clean, so that we can test the sharpness of the blades and determine if we need to make an adjustment to the blade on either side on how close it is to the bed knife. I had mentioned in my last video that I needed to put a new air filter on my lawnmower, so I picked up an air filter that I'm going to put in the mower today. Okay, and we'll put the new air filter in here. Back in place. Alright, new filters in and covers back on. When getting your equipment ready for spring, be sure to to also clean and gap your spark plugs. When changing your oil, you'll want to start the engine and let it run for a few minutes to warm up the oil. And also in letting it run, it gets the sediment off the bottom of the engine so that when you drain the oil out, the sediment will come out with the oil. I use a vacuum pump to change the oil on my lawnmower. What you do after you've warmed up the engine and let it run a while to loosen up the sediment off the bottom of the engine, you just open it up or take the oil cap off. Then you insert the tube down into the engine where you add oil. It goes all the way down to the bottom. And then you simply start pumping on the vacuum pump, and as you can see, the oil is already coming out, flowing out into the container on the vacuum pump. And as you can see, most of the oil is already drained already. It's like slurping a straw on the bottom of a milkshake or soda. But I'm just going to keep pumping it a little bit to get as much of that sucked off the bottom as I can. But as far as draining the oil, it's pretty much drained at this point. At this point, we can add new oil into the engine, and we're almost done. Okay, with new oil in the engine, we'll start it up again, just to make sure that the oil's settled in the engine good, and then we'll check the oil level one more time. Okay, now I've shut the engine off. I'll just let the oil settle for a minute or two, and then we will check the oil level. Now that the engine is stopped and the oil is settled down, we'll make sure we've got it adequately filled with oil. And it looks like we're filled to a very good spot. So the oil change is done, and we should be good to go when springtime arrives.
I have a preference to use trimmers with 4-cycle engines. Like other 4-cycle motors, they require periodic oil changes.
It's pretty easy to drain the oil out of this engine because right at the back there's a little plug that you unscrew, take it out, and you just simply drain the used oil into your oil container. Okay, so that part is pretty well complete. To refill the oil, this trimmer came with a little measured container. On refilling the oil, you just simply put the container in here and squirt oil into it, and when it reaches the lip right here, it's full. So we just, and then we just screw the plug back in, and the oil change job is complete for this. I have a second trimmer. It's also has a 4-cycle engine on it, and also need to change the oil on this one. This one, the drain is on the side. I'll just remove the plug, and this one, We just turn it sidewise to drain it into the oil container. And it appears to be pretty well drained. Okay, and similar to my other one, we just simply use the pre-measured container to add the new oil. And again, it's full when it gets up to this lip. Yep. Careful. So that's all there is to changing the oil on the 4-cycle trimmer engine. Part of what we can do in January is to trim off the old growth from the crepe myrtles. We can also cut down the ornamental grasses to make room for new growth in the spring. As you can see, there's still quite a bit of green on the ornamental grasses. They didn't fully go dormant this year, but we'll go ahead and trim them so that they're ready for the new growth in the spring.
Quite a difference after trimming.
And the liriope is also trimmed down, ready for new shoots to pop through in the spring.
And we'll finish off with a little midwinter application of preemergent to keep the weeds from germinating over the winter.
January is flying by, and there are plenty of projects to keep you busy as you prepare for the spring mowing season. We'll keep this short today, and thanks for watching this episode of Lawn Tips with Lou, and I'll see you next time.